You know.
Hey.
Is this one done?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were saying hi to me.
She is.
Oh.
All right, we should be officially live streaming. Are you ready to?
I am. All right, so I'd like to call to order. We're gonna say, oh, you gotta take
I'm
turns
gonna go ahead and do
first.
the roll call. Mrs. Petropoulos,
Here.
Mrs. Lebudzig,
Here.
Mrs. Grove,
Here.
Mrs. Lammel, absent. Mrs. Birkin,
Here.
Mr. Medina, and Mrs. Schroeder.
All right, so pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, introduction of guests.
Yeah, we do not have any tonight.
All right, public participation. We do not have any public, so we're moving on to 3.0, approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. All right, Mrs. Schroeder,
Aye.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Bergen,
Aye.
Mrs. Lammel. Oh, she is absent. Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
Mrs. Lebudzig,
Aye.
and Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye. 4.0, summer school updates.
Yes, wow, that came up quick. This is the third week of the summer school. It is the final week, so Friday is the last day. It was really quick, only 13 student days. So, I've actually received pictures of the students. The teachers are so excited. They planned units, themes. They had a camping week. They had an outdoor nature week. They had all these different ideas. One of the things that they actually were able to do, and it was based on the staff, is take a walking field trip over to what I know is Rocket Park, which is over there across 103rd. It's now Memorial Park, I believe is the new name of it. So every grade level, K2 partnered up and they are taking a walk. They took a walking field trip this week. 3-5 then took a walking field trip last week. They wanted to use a splash pad, but it's under construction, so it's out of commission for the month of June, but that was something that the staff had asked if they could do. So I want the board to know that it's not just the academics, which is happening, the reading, the math, the writing, but that they're also engaging the students in different activities, giving them the experience, the smiles on these kids. They're so excited to come in the door. They're so excited to be with new kids. And what we're seeing is that collaboration or connection with students that they haven't been in class with or across the school district, first graders from both Ridgelawn and Ridge Central coming together. And the teachers have reported just that same thing, that the students are really doing well, collaborating with each other, partnering with each other, engaged in the lessons, the activities that they're planning, but then also having fun and smiling and enjoying it as well. Our attendance overall is actually down from last year. So when I reported on this last year, we had 83% attendance overall up until the point of presenting it to the board. This year we only have 74%. So we've been kind of disappointed with enrollment even going into summer school. Even though our numbers were the same, we had a really difficult time recruiting students to participate. Many families that said no. When the first day did come around, we did have some students show up. And we welcomed them with open arms. Our actual junior high numbers went from 12 to 16 because we had 4 students whose parents either forgot to commit but that they were invited, or they showed up because they have a younger sibling who's in summer school, and the 2 teachers, Mrs. Julie Baker and Mrs. Haneen Araf, just welcome them in. So they actually have the largest roster at 16 and also the highest attendance. Our junior high, if you remember, is 6th, 7th, and 8th graders put together with 2 teachers, and they have 90% attendance right now. So that's the one class that's actually bringing that overall attendance average up. But what we aren't seeing is a ton of participation from what we would hope is that K-5, the incoming kindergarten through those 5th grade students classes. So it's something that we'll continue to monitor and think about and try to troubleshoot. and look at, why that might be. We actually had about 6 students whose parents already reached out after the first week and said they're going out of town, they're going on vacation, they're traveling, so they're not gonna be coming back. So our actual overall enrollment dropped from the start as well.
Question. The people who are invited to go to this though are students who have shown that they have needs
You got it.
in certain
Correct.
areas. And so then, I'm assuming, is everyone who has needs, or is there like, I'm assuming it's a graduated scale, like, yeah.
Right, so we have done it with more of a triangular, type approach where we look at NWEA map data, we get teacher recommendations, the administrators then get eyes on that list.
Yeah.
And we start with, we reach out to the teams at every grade level, each of the buildings, and say, please send a list of your top 12 for your grade. And that's Ridge 1 and Ridge Central. So we have a list of 24 students, and the secretary start reaching out, and they kind of level the students based on that greatest need being the one that's invited first, and the 12th person being, needing support. But it's really targeted towards students who have not yet mastered the current grade level in hopes to be able to fill some of that.
Gaps to go into the next year.
Correct.
The entrance level skills as opposed to, what they're learning new. Cause this is going into a bigger question, what about the kids who don't come? And, how are teachers, I guess, knowing that these students are having these gaps and then that they didn't get the supplementation that they may or may not need? Like, how are we helping the student who can't come during the summer for whatever reason? I mean, people travel, whatever.
Sure.
And then how are we helping the teachers support them? Are these, I know that the after school programs don't start instantly, which often helps. There's at need ones, not just Saturday.
Right, and ideally, we would hope that the teachers differentiated that instruction, but I think what I hear from what you're saying is, how are we ensuring that incoming teacher has that data, has that knowledge of not only where that student is at, but then what other help have they received or supports have they received prior to, with it being after school activity or academics or summer school, and or have they not participated?
I just think it's a great piece of summative information if you look at the kids who attended the summer school program. And if they've bridged those gaps as opposed to the ones who haven't, not to
Sure.
make an issue with the ones who haven't, but to say hey, it's really working. 72% of the kids who went last year, or however many percent, have got to grade level.
Yeah.
But if they were behind, I just think that kind of data sometimes as a parent, well, I kind of wanted to put them in this, but
Sure.
if they can get caught up and be reading at level, that would be an amazing feat. So just little things that have popped into my head about it.
We're following them through the year too,
We-
and then the following year to see.
We do look at their data, we do have their data, and that's kind of referencing what you were saying. We don't see a huge difference from where they're at to where their peers are overall. With it being 13 days and only being a half day, there's not that great of a academic student data increase overall from summer school.
Okay.
Is there testing, at the end of
We do not do any assessments, no.
Yeah. I mean, I think though, sometimes having any enrichment over the summer, if it's,
keep
and
them learning?
keep them learning,
Yeah,
and I know a lot of
Easier
kids.
transitions.
Yeah, easier transition, that it's not all summer without books or math. A lot
right,
of
sure.
kids do the library too, so just curious, I mean, I get it, 13 days isn't, but still making you feel welcome and loved at school, like the field trip, that's part of it too, that you feel good about coming every day.
Mhm.
I was curious with the attendance, you said how we were at 74%?
Correct.
And we had switched how we were doing summer school and shortened it, because we said over 4th of July, we saw a lot of people drop off. So what are we at, compared to what we were before we changed the schedule?
So our attendance was in the 60s when
2
we,
years ago, right?
yeah, 2 years ago when we ran it longer. Last year, we saw a huge increase in the overall attendance when we did shorten it. So last year and this year are very similar to how we ran the program. Last year was 14 days, this year was 13 days. Both of them ended before the 4th of July or in June. Last year's last day was June 28th, this year's June 27th. So we were hoping that
Stay high.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because we were very concerned with it only, I think we had 68% attendance in previous years when we ran it We also
How
had,
many days was it when it was longer?
almost 24,
It was like
25.
2 sessions, wasn't it?
It was one long session.
Okay.
Yeah. However, at that point, we were able to financially invite more students. We had 120 students because we at the time had ESSER money that was able to provide more staffing. So we had 2 sections of each grade level coming in. So we were able to invite an entire roster of 10 to 12 students from Ridge Lawn first grade and Ridge Central's first grade, for example. And that our attendance was, I mean, we had some grade levels, and that time we had 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade separate. Some days we had teachers with no students because the attendance was so poor. And that ran, then we also had some holidays in there with Eid. So we had students that were absent on 4th of July, and we also ran it Monday through Thursday. Now we run it Monday through Friday, and we've kind of shortened that to just a 3-week span. And like I said, last year's we were really higher and hoping this year that we could still see that.
Are we looking in to see which students from what schools are showing up?
I have not gone to that depth yet.
We usually find the closer the school, the better the attendance is.
Yeah.
Even with busing.
With busing in?
I almost wonder like if, I mean, I think it's good that, cause we started right after
Yes.
school
Mhm.
ended, so like, you know, they didn't miss a beat, like, didn't get used to sleeping in, all of that. Like, right, if you did one in August, like, to get them going early, so then, like, we're like,
Like
in the swing of
entrance
things ahead of
skills.
time, you know? I don't know.
Do schools find it difficult for attendance at the beginning of the school year with a large population of Middle Eastern families being back home?
Yes,
Very much.
Yeah.
usually not until after Labor Day
Yeah,
or
that would
late
be my guess.
September do we have students that did travel, returning.
We have that same issue.
Or even leaving early.
Yeah, we're leaving early.
Yes, yeah, that also.
Yeah. I was also curious with like the junior high, so students who received Fs in classes, is there like something where they're like required to do the summer school or?
We do not have a remediation for course credit in summer school.
Not necessarily credit, because they don't want to get credits for graduating no matter what, but just holding them accountable for not doing anything.
It is something
A threat
that,
to hold over their head, like, hey, you get an F, you gotta spend a couple weeks here in the summer. you know?
yeah, it is something that the junior high staff has inquired, and we've talked about it.
Yeah, I would really see it falling under our kind of our grading committee discussion and how we're looking at it, so do that throughout the year, that's something.
Recovery
I
or.
mean, especially getting ready for high school when
You
they
will
do
fail,
have
yeah.
to retake the class,
Mhm.
you know, so just kind of like setting that standard.
I do feel like when I was here, they had something, if you failed class, you had to come in the summer, but I don't. Never failed.
That was a long time ago, honey.
It was not that long ago, okay, could have been any time.
Use
And
chisel and
These get degrees, okay. All right,
Yeah, questions for Megan? Good feedback.
all right, fantastic. 5.0, potential board action on the advance approval of expected bills and payroll for June and July 2025 and expected expenditures for Chicago Ridge School District 127.5 and Eisenhower Co-op.
And we look for this every year, just knowing we don't have a meeting in July. Obviously, if there's any like weird bill that comes in, we're gonna let you know, but usually in the summer, they're very expected bills and payroll that we do every time.
I make a motion.
Mrs. Schroeder,
Aye.
Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
Mrs. Lebudsik,
Aye.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Birkin
Aye.
and Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye. 6.0, potential board action to approve a healthcare staffing contract with Elevation Healthcare for 25-26 school year for hard to fill positions.
Yeah, both 6.0 and 7.0 are just organizations that Mr. Hilligans has found that tend to offer a little bit better rates than what's been out there. Again, we don't want to use these unless we have to, but especially when we get to August, if there's any positions that we have to fill, so.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Lebudsik,
Aye.
Mrs. Schroeder.
Aye.
Mrs. Bergen,
Aye.
and Mrs. Petropoulos.
I, 7.0 potential board action to approve healthcare staffing contract with supplemental healthcare for 25-26 school year for our default positions.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Lebedzick,
Aye.
Mrs. Schroeder,
Aye.
Mrs. Bergen,
Aye.
Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
and Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye. 8.0 potential board action to approve payment to interiors for business for classroom furniture at Ridgelawn in the amount of $202,965.95.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
Mrs. Lebedzick,
Aye.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Schroeder,
Aye.
Mrs. Bergen,
Aye.
and Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye. 9.0 potential board action to approve payment to interior for business for classroom furniture at Ridge Central in the amount of $243,201.38.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Mrs. Lebedzick,
Aye.
Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
Mrs. Schroeder,
Aye.
Mrs. Bergen,
Aye.
Mr. Medina,
Aye.
and Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye. 10.0 potential board action to approve payment to Construction Solutions of Illinois in the amount of $48,698.00 for interior signage protection project, excuse me.
Is that the, like
It's all the little signs.
numbering too?
Yes, yeah, they renumbered everything,
okay.
yes. Is this the final payment, Kath?
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
only
Okay, all right.
I'll second.
Mrs. Bergen,
Aye.
Mrs. Schroeder,
Aye.
Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Lebedzick,
Aye.
and Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye. 11.0 potential board action to approve payment to Palmer Hamilton in the amount not to exceed $67,207.60 for purchase and installation of lunch tables, benches, and cabinets at Ridge Central.
Make a
I'll make a
motion.
motion. I'll second it
Who was on the first? Or on the second?
Yeah.
Mrs. Bergen,
Aye.
Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
Mrs. Schroeder,
then. Aye.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Lebedzick,
Aye.
and Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye. 12.0 potential board action to approve payment to the Eisenhower Co-op in the amount not to exceed, correct me, is this $1,314,139.50 for the district's portion of the Spalding addition.
Yeah, so the reason we have not to exceed is Kathy has done a great job of monitoring this throughout the year. Our goal is that we can pay the entire thing off, at the end in a week, basically. With what's left over from this year, we want to get that off the books. If we're not able to pay the whole thing, she's going to pay all the way up to exactly what we can so that we're not in the red for this year. And if there's a couple thousand that we aren't able to pay, then we would pay that next year.
Great job, Kathy, thank you.
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Mrs. Schroeder,
Aye.
Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
Mrs. Lebedzick,
Aye.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Bergen,
Aye.
and Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye. 13.0 adjourn to closed session.
Yes, the discussion of employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act as defined in the Open Meetings Act, Section 2C1. The discussion of collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or the representatives or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees as described in Section 2C2, the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel shall be acquired as defined in Section 2C5, and the discussion of pending or probable and imminent litigation against, affecting, or on behalf of the district as defined in Section 2C11. For the purpose of review, approval, or release of such minutes, we will not be discussing any security or student discipline at this time.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Lebedzick,
Aye.
Mrs. Schroeder,
Aye.
Mrs. Bergen,
Aye.
and Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
Right, we're gonna stop the live stream for now. We're gonna take a